First Smoke of the Day family, if you want to get hooked up with Grow Generation, Drip Hydro, Faven Lighting, if you're a cultivator, all you have to do is go to fsotd.com and you get hooked up with the newest discount codes and access straight to those brands. It's the same thing with Dr. Dabber and Raw Elements rolling papers. You know, we rock with them. This is a great episode. We talk hardware, extraction, coming from Humboldt, active. This is a fun one. Let's get into it.
We cut our teeth in Humboldt, back in 08, 07, 08 for like 8+ years. Did a lot of land development, and I think that's where a lot of the love for the plant started. We didn't know about ITC, and ITC means International Trade Commission. A Chinese company decided to sue American companies for patent infringement. No idea what the hell was going on at this case, and so we got a case stack like this tall. It's like, what the fuck is this? One of the mistakes that CCEL made is they didn't know who the fuck we were. It was almost a responsibility that was kind of bestowed upon us to represent the industry, because if they won, they would have had a monopoly on importation of all these devices, man. I believe the plant chooses its stewards. Here we are, we're still here, right? We're excited about active, We got a lot of things on the horizon, just ability to kick ass for clients and people, and I think that's the part that Scott is really jazzed.
First Smoke family, we got some serious extraction talk. If you can't tell, we have an insane amount of different extractions on the table, from rosin to resin. We're going to sit down today with Alex, formerly AVD, but active. Total rebrand. Very interesting. We've been having a serious convo already about the industry, where it's going. Coming from Humboldt, all kinds of really interesting stories about extraction and how you got here. Could you intro us and start it off?
Yeah, I obviously appreciate being here. I know it took time. How many times we've rescheduled?
A year.
Yeah,
we've been working on this for a year.
I know. We've been traveling and stuff. So shout out to the teams for making it happen. Yeah, man, it's just been a lifelong journey, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's amazing about the plant is that in a lot of ways, it kind of weaves and picks and chooses its way to survive and thrive and teach lessons in a lot of ways. So I think there's been a lot of interesting challenges along the way. But like in life and in any cycle, I think challenges and opportunities are two sides of the same coin, right? And it's a matter of your mindset and your perspective of which you look at it. And man, I've been in this space for 15+ years, and being in it for that long, right? You realize that, time creates a very different perspective. And so, we cut, like you said, we cut our teeth in Humboldt, back in 08, 07, 08 for like 8+ years. Did a lot of land development. And I think that's where a lot of the love for the plant started, right? A lot of the passion for it around understanding infrastructure, understanding development, understanding kind of how you have to work with the land, how you have to be able to set up the right type of tools so that people can cultivate and people can grow. And at that time, it was, the knowledge was in these little pockets, so even when you're servicing it in a lot of ways and you're working with a lot of these people, there's an incredible amount of gratitude that you have around just the brain trust. A lot of those people that help guide you or take you under their wing or support you, right? I mean, you've seen that through all the transitions and cycles, not of the industry, but your life and all the ways that work kind of evolves. So that was great, right? And I think what happened moving forward was we had this view at some point that if you're around the space for a long time, you can find good herb, right? It's always there, available. The fire growers, excellent genetics, all those things. And I think when I was looking at the space later, I think what happened was saw vape cart for the first time, or even when e-juice was happening with like people getting off cigarettes. Because I used to be a cigarette smoker.
Well, right? Okay, so one of the things I'm going to interrupt you on is we kept going back to know the business you're in. You got sued by CCEL.
We did.
And when you say battle, I mean, that's a big battle, because you have a company that's worth big M's
Yeah.
that doesn't have the same laws that apply to you. And they're playing a game that they want to play in your court now.
I mean, there were B's, right?
There you go.
We're playing different. I guess the theme is, right, we'll keep coming back to it, is know the game that you're playing, right? In every stage of life, and even in the game to a game to a game, there's one above it. And, you know, the analogy I try to like to use is business and sports and musical instruments are like, they're all analogous in the sense that the better you get at it, the more you realize you suck.
It's levels, right? So
Yeah.
you got to the next level.
You get
now,
to
that field is even bigger.
Yeah, you get to the next stage, you realize how small you are in the world of those things. And with Seesaw and S'more, that was, I mean, that was...
Tell us how it came about and tell us how it happened, like what happened.
So I'm going to try to keep it brief around that, right? Because we didn't know about ITC, and ITC means International Trade Commission. So that's like the arena, right? That's the field of which certain trade cases are played. And that's designed to protect American industry. So it has to do with importation, has to do with products. So S'more had the bright idea as a Chinese company. You know, by the way, I do want to state that, like, I don't have anything against it. Just how certain companies operate, you know, are that's their own prerogative, right? That's their culture.
I like what you said. That's their culture.
Yeah, that
does
company
represent.
Yeah, no, there's different companies that are fantastic that you work with in China. The Chinese people are great, but sometimes the structure and the systems and I'm not going to talk too much about government geopolitics, but you guys get my point around all that, right? But people, when you talk to them like this, you realize that, you know, people you vibe with and people that have shared values, that's a good thing. But their culture in particular, they thought it was a bright idea to, you know, just listen to how kind of wild this is. A Chinese company decided to sue American companies for patent infringement, of stealing their ideas.
Already you're like, what now?
Yeah. And in the, you know, landscape of protecting American businesses. We're American, right? And we're from cannabis, right? I'm born and raised in Chicago, right? So it's like I'm, you know, so it's interesting to see that, right? And I think what happened as I went through, like the thing that it taught us was, and I have no idea what the hell was going on at this case. And so we got a case stack like this tall. It's like, what the fuck is this? Mm-hmm. You know, and so I think we had to learn really fast, be curious, ask a lot of questions. But I think one of the mistakes that Seesaw made is they didn't know who the fuck we were, you know? And I think throughout that process, with the connections and resources that we were able to put together, we had this binary choice. You know, it's not like we wanted to sit there and be like, oh, we're going to, you know, go and fight this thing and do all these things. It was almost a responsibility that was kind of bestowed upon us to represent the industry. Because if they won, they would have had a monopoly on importation of all these devices, man.
It says presidents that now who's next now? Who else can we go after competition wise that we can take their piece off the board?
Yeah, look, it was a tactic for them. I'm not saying it was a wrong tactic or certain things. If I look at, again, take off our lens and put theirs on, they saw market share being taken. They didn't know how, right? There was a lot of noise around who we were, right? I like to be a little bit more private. I think we're talking a lot more here just because of the rebrand and kind of the name change and kind of what it means of the roots of kind of what we come from and kind of our promise not only to folks like you but also the industry as a whole.
NorCal guys are the toughest to get on camera.
But it's just like, look, man, I believe the plant chooses its stewards, right? Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of stories and legends of people, and if you're fortunate to have met them and talked to them, it's a humbling experience, right? And so I have a ton of respect for that because the plant in a lot of ways has been so gracious and good to me and my friends and our networks and our lives. And so here we are, we're still here, right? That many years later. So it's just, again, looking at that. And I think what happened was because they didn't know who we really were, you know, the case kind of developed then. So they had no idea whether or not we would fight it. I think their thought was that the industry was going to roll over, right? Because they did target like 30 some companies, but we had knowledge of people telling us like, yeah, no, they're specifically coming after you. You know, they're trying to settle with people to say, hey, no, this is who we're going after. You know, and so Yeah, it was interesting.
Do you think it was a dirty game too? Meaning like they know the industry out here in California, and if they put a big enough lawsuit or some pressure on people just based off of people's previous history and the life they live, some people will just fold right off bat knowing like, what am I about to expose myself and go to war with this $1 billion company that isn't playing by the same rules as me?
It's a good question. You know, I'm not Chinese and I'm not them, you know?
Definitely strategic move.
Yeah. Like, look, if you look at their tools, let's just look at their tool belt, right? They got a big balance sheet, got lots of money. I think it costs 3 to 5 M's to just even bring the ITC.
Oh, so hardware. So
it's not even cheap. No, just to bring the case into that arena.
Oh, so you know it's serious at that point.
Oh, yeah. Like, so some notable ITC cases, Apple versus Samsung. Google versus Sonos, right? Like these are the type of cases that are met at the ITC forum. And so that again, I remember speaking with some of our attorneys who, thank you, you know what I mean? Like we were lucky to find some, you know, excuse my language, but fucking badasses in that space that are world renowned for their reputation and their ability to execute and just win. And I think that was a huge help for us. Obviously, we learned a ton. And some of the other corporate lawyers were like, I've been practicing law for 40 plus years and I've never even come across an ITC. So the fact that you guys are going through this as a cannabis company, like cottage industry, like it was trial by fire, man. Just like anything, right? If you come from the industry one way or another, it's like, oh, I wish, hey, can someone help me? Oh, you don't know? All right, fuck it, let's just do it. And then you just kind of learn, you're curious, ask questions, refine, adapt, right? Keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's really served us well, right? I think we got a huge culture at the company and the organization around just, you know, that's one of the core tenets around our team, resilience.
Oh, I like how you talked about that, core tenets. Okay. See, and I like the way you talk about your business culture, right? With Active, like you're very solidified on what you stand for as a company. And to get to that, it takes decades, if not a lot of time and a lot of hard time to find out your avenue, your niche, what you're passionate about. How did you get into this? Because I mean, we're looking at an insane amount of extraction, right? I mean, honestly, we have a lot of extractors that come on, and maybe some of them will bring some rosin jars or some hash jars. But I mean, this is like everything. Can you explain a little bit about what we're seeing? Just a little run through.
Yeah, for sure. Try to stay more concise, right?
It's a lot of stuff.
I think, again, it starts with understanding cannabis. I think that's important, right? And so, you know, a lot of the land development side of stuff, you have to understand the sun. You have to understand the soil. You have to understand the declination. You have to understand kind of, you know, the seasons and how the plant interacts with that, right? Even from the soil, living compost teas, understanding kind of the full spectrum of how the plant is produced, the phenotyping ability that it has, right? The varietals and what happens. And that, as someone that's maybe trying to create infrastructure to optimize that for the artist of a grower, right? Artistry of a grower at scale, there's a lot of tools, right? You can't just hand water everything, right? Those days, there's all these transitions that happen. And so I think when you start thinking about the plant that way, and you're thinking about, look, a lot of things that we target in the plant, like obviously when we smoke herb, right, you have a lot of carbon in there. You have some of these other pieces, but sometimes when it's finished properly or someone ended it with sugars and how fire it tastes, right? And there's different parts, and there's parts of it that's a different topic of organics, living compost, regenerative agriculture, and then salts, and then hybridizing salts, all the different styles that you have.
A bunch of people real quick.
Of course, right? I'm sure.
Those all makes a difference.
Those are all modalities, right? And if you're starting to target resin, I'm not talking about like live resin. I'm talking about the resin on the plant. So the cannabinoids, the trichomes, right? There's certain parts of it, right? So once you start thinking about how to cultivate for that, and you're looking at the oil side, right? Obviously there's cost metrics that deal with this, right? When you get to scale and the efficiencies and all that stuff, right? Because that also correlates back to how you grow. Now, when you get to different extractions, you start realizing like, oh, there's a whole other like suite of compounds, you know, derivatives or concentrations that start happening. And I think that was really interesting to me back in, was that 12, 13, maybe 14, I want to say. And I was on the search. I was investing in this space at that time, trying to like find the right person that was hungry like us 10 years ago. You can work with them and figure out the next future. Because when I smoked a vape pen for the first time, I was like, oh, this is going to be a thing. Like 10, 20 years from now, it's convenient, it works, and like, oh, it's different. And so what are you, I remember the first time we tried to make oil, we took shatter and we put it in a frying pan and tried to liquefy it and it put it something like, that's how like.
Well, it starts with backyard science and then
how
evolves
crude,
to real.
like how crude our thinking was, right? And then when you start talking to scientists and you do that, again, back to cycles and game and understanding that, like you talk to someone about CO2 extraction, that was the first big thing because it's clean, it's not hydrocarbons, it's not open blasting, you know, you've heard all these things, right? And that was important. So obviously I through my history and relationships, I knew that we had good access to cultivators, good access to genetics, things that you just really couldn't at that time, like due diligence.
Damn, bro, you got a dab everywhere we go. It's discreet, it's portable, nobody knows. DrDabber.com. Use the code, get your access now.
Access to the proper resin.
Yes. But the way that you're gonna go after it, right? But then now is all about understanding the extraction, right? From CO2, hydrocarbons, solventless, ethanol, all those ways, because they all do good things efficiently differently. And so if you're cognizant, at the end of the day, cannabis is an amazing thing, but we all know, like, we're in a private industry, banking does it, you gotta make money. If you can't make money and you can't work with people and doing that, it's just a pipe dream. So just be thoughtful about, again, the game that you're getting into, right? And I think the extraction side was interesting because you knew there was a future. There was gonna be so many other derivatives that are gonna come from it. And I'm gonna tangent for a second, right? Is that like, you probably heard other people talk about, oh, there's 400, now 450, 480, 400 plus different diverse chemicals in the plant. Right, it creates them. If you think about it, it's almost the definition of the renewable source of energy, right? Because it's an annual plant, which then can be regenerated, and it's one of the fastest phenotyping plants. So if we grew the same plant, same clone, called each other, and over a generation or two, guess what? That makeup has just shifted. Yeah. And so when you're fingerprinting the plant, right, and you start looking at all the volatiles, all the cannabinoids, terpenoids, flavonoids, you can go down the list of all the different types of categories. But each one of those come in a different ratio. And to recreate that, it's not cost effective from synthesis or a lab. So the mother nature, the plant, as beautiful as she is, she does that. And it's our job as extractors at some point when it's cultivated right, how do I get it? And then you can make awesome flavors and some of the things that kind of come out from it, right? But it started very crude. The thought process was, how do you target resin? And certain things are different. Certain things wash better, some things blast better, some things just run for cannabinoids better.
Well, and it seems like the better extractors I talk to have a blend of hydrocarbons they use. It's not just one.
Oh, 100%.
It's this percentage of this with this. Okay, yeah.
It's like the same thing as a grower. It's like, oh no, this is my growers are, you know this, right? They are loyal to their newts, right? And
it's the one thing I will not change, basically.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I always finish with this. If I'm cutting clones, this is how I'm doing my babies, right? Like when I do transplant, you got to do this first. You have to do this, right? And that's a part of your SOP. Everyone has what's worked for them. And that, I don't think that's much different from an extractor that's like, oh, I added this ratio and this ratio. And oh man, I got this clarity or I got this, right? So that's the artist side. That's what's so cool about the plant. You have all these little subsector modalities that people can specialize in and make fucking amazing product.
Yeah, right? Well, and it seems like every year there's advancements.
Oh yeah.
When we first saw THCA hit, everyone was like, holy shit, what is this? It's 99, right? You know, and then it was, here's what terpenes look like.
Yeah.
Actual cannabis terpenes.
Yeah.
Then it evolved to, well, let's take some of the terpenes and mix it back into and it just keeps evolving, right? Yeah. And then I followed some of the big extraction clear scientists and some of these guys
Chris
that
Baroni.
In my eyes, I watch and I'm like, wow, this is a guy who came from a different aspect of this industry, has a different working brain, right? And is attacking this problem. Unlike, we need more of you. We need more people who are willing to take the risk to work on cannabis at this level of extraction.
I mean, like, look, I want to put me in that same category. But at the end of the day, it's like I'm just fortunate to have people that I'm not the smartest guy. I mean, we have excellent people, and again, it comes back to the drive around that. And I think that they're the artists, man. They're the ones that figure this out. They live through that, right? You have somebody that's got an amazing, setup and a rig, and they're so passionate. They'll go home and open blast just to figure out other shit that they could do. Even though they got a multi-million-dollar lab that's just punching through, hundreds of thousands of kilos of biomass, right? So it's that's another part of the nuance when you get to these oils, right? And it's different than distillate, right? Obviously, that was a big part of the clear, but that was a simple distillation rig. And then THCA, high THC, diamonds, decarb, whatever you want to call it, right? And so it's interesting to see the language change, right? It's interesting to see in what the actual product is.
HTFSE.
Yeah. HTE, sauce, pour off, you know what I mean? So
jelly.
Yeah. So I think, a long-winded way of saying really is like, we were just interested on the next stage of this, like verticalizing cultivation, the intentionality, right, of growing resin at the best cost per milliliter and best cost per milligram.
Which any grower knows, growing for flower versus growing for resin is two different things. I'm not saying there's not crossover where when you grow for good flower, you can't get good resin, but it is a different growing science, a different day of harvest, even different strains. Things that you are like, oh, this plant smells like vanilla or kind of like wedding cakey. And then you do the extraction, you're like, no, this is straight gasoline and vanilla cream, and extraction is a whole other monster.
There's a different variability, right? And even when you like look at the trichomes, you're seeing how a plant grows. It's like super gassy this, or it's super, fruity or chopped tange, or you have, all just hazy, right? Some jacks. What's interesting is like, you think it's going to do one, and then when it runs, you're like, oh, fuck, it didn't do what I thought it was. It's all right, let's go run it over there, right? So I think also, there was also a misnomer in the beginning because a lot of people made extracts from bee buds, trim, and after the, just kind of byproduct.
You don't trust the extractor.
It's different. Or people that, you knew that in Cali, right? Some people just start popping up extraction fields and doing that. Like, oh, it must be easy to grow for extracts. It's like, well, no, if you are growing for resin, you're trying to optimize the plant's growth. You want like a plant that's healthy, that's pushing out, whatever numbers you want to say, whether it's yield or, the assays that you're looking at and testing score, it doesn't matter. You're optimizing that because that's what's coming. That's the efficiency. So you're not trying to grow shit bud. You're trying to grow fire.
Yes.
Always, right? You should always be growing fire. You should always be targeting the fire. And then get it to a form that like, ooh, that's interesting. Oh, it tastes like this, or that batch was different. And that's what happens. Like variability wise, almost no two runs are the same. Right? And that's very true when you're targeting resin and rosin, especially rosin, right? So how it's going to wash, how it's going to act, how are people doing their post-processing? Are they jar taking? Are they deconstructing, reconstructing like you talked about?
Just a 10-day difference in harvest.
There's just so much. And then they have because they're in a commercial environment, they got to get things out. So they're not waiting. It's the same thing you see with flower when people dry. How many times have you seen that where you've seen someone grow for so long, they still can't get the fucking cure right?
Oh, I grew up in South Florida. I mean, the amount of wet weed that would come from the mango and all the stuff that they just didn't. Yeah, people rush the end, which is damn near the most important. And some of the rosin jars, this is just for reference. I saw some Skittles the other day that was about 3-4 months old, rosin. I saw some fresh press.
Oh,
if you were to tell, I'm like, I'll take the 3-4 month cure. Like, I mean, it was like, this is the same strain.
The funniest thing about that, right, is like some people will look at this, right, and then be like, oh man, I want the clarity of this. Or ahead is always to say, oh, give me the dark stuff. Because they know that there's different things going on, right? There's changes that are going on in the plant, like there's changes going on even when it's drying, right? So cured resin and live is different, right, when you're taking it. So yeah, like, look, that's really where it started, right? Where it's really, having a love for not only the plant and understanding it, but really taking and understanding extraction. Then the nuances start getting in. Again, another game, right? Being like, oh shit, how do you standardize this? Then you have certain bases of certain flavors that you realize how they extract and what happens. And what that leads to is knowing what I talked about earlier, being like, hey, when you vaped for the first time, you're like, oh, this would be a category. So I was just focused on that. Let's grow resin. Let's do it properly. Let's target all the cultivation methods that have been taught and learned and known, right? From Southern Humboldt, Eastern Humboldt, like all the different styles that work. Because there's people like to skin greenhouses, some people that don't. Some people like to do mixed light. Some people like to do just assisted light. Some people have to do above ground pots. Some people like to go in the soil and go native. Some people, amend with, some people like to, they like to top dress, or some people like to just go all liquid newts. So there's a lot of different methodologies of how you go target it, let's just say, right? And then when you got into all the different extraction methods, that was a whole nother variable. And then you get that liquid into a cart, right? And
these are beautiful, by the way. These are the ceramic top and the, woo.
So here's the interesting thing about a cart that you learn. I didn't know any of this. It's not like, hey, I had this great idea. He's like, hey, dude, you know what we're going to do? We're going to start making hardware in China. It's like, this is what we're going to be. We're from the space, right? So it's like, it wasn't like this crazy thing. It was really birthed by like an issue. And so when you're like making oil, doing all that work, building, cultivating, extracting, getting to formulate it, and then you put it in carts, and you want to sell on the market, and you're smoking it. And then at retail, people are like, oh, it's leaking. It's an issue. They don't care about the hardware. They think your brand sucks.
Yeah, immediately.
And that's a huge problem, right? Because they don't know anything about carts. So now you're asking, hey, so like the viscosity is this one's going on. They're like, at that time, it was like Jupiters of the world and doing that. They're not. They're confused. They're like, you're speaking a foreign language to them. It's kind of funny with who's making it, but like it was, right? And I think their technology was based on something completely different. Their modality was totally different. If an e-cig leaks, nobody cares.
They replace it.
They don't care, right? It just sticks in your pocket. It's not sticky. Just liquid. It smells fruity. Oh, it's kind of nice. That's how they might think, right? Well, what happens if that oil at that time, how much money per liter that costs per gram? You're like, that's like liquid gold.
Yeah,
right?
and then it leaks,
dirtied the brand off. Exactly.
So it's a loss.
Totally different perspective. And obviously they don't, it's hard for how they're going to know wheat, how they're going to know the different viscosity. They're so disconnected to understanding that. And let alone, great, everyone, the competitors are doing it, but like still there's a lot of variance even within this, right? Even someone that knows what we're talking about. Now you take 12 different components. So it's not any different. Think about if you're grabbing, if you're growing and your raw material sources, or let's just say you're a sourcer, right? And you're getting certain products, or even if you're trapping, you're getting packs, right?
I would consider it your medium.
Yeah, someone's got B grade, right? Or someone's got their work, or they got the fire, right? Or they have certain grades of what they're getting. That's raw materials.
Yeah.
It's not any different if like 12 different components come together to make one of these little things. And one of these little things, there's cotton, there's ceramic cores, there's wires, there's plastic, there's glass, there's a lot of pieces that are working, anodes, there's different pieces working in harmony, right? If you really think about it, it's a closed vessel. You're putting a liquid in there that's active, right? For us, active cannabinoids, active products, especially when you bring heat to it, it's going to also react. So you have something in here that now it's changing and reacting, vaporizing, heating up, and then you got it in this little thing, and it's got to work through how the oil is getting in, how it's going to go out, because it's sometimes batch to batch. I'll show you later, right? Same strain, same growers, different batch, total different like little nuances. That is really hard to create a catch-all around something, right? On a cartridge that it's going to work.
Well, and it's a solvent, right? So the liquid actually
100%.
Inside the cart is a solvent, even though you've pulled all the actual solvent out of it. The liquid itself is a solvent. So now
when you add heat to it, you're creating a chemical reaction. And so like, that's a whole different thing, right? That's on the efficacy of the extract side, right? Like as in how stable are your constituents? How stable is your formulation, right? Like a lot of people kind of forget that. I've said a lot without saying much there, but like that's an important part of whereas some of this oil, I'll show you like 3 years old and it'll taste fire.
How would the end user see it being unstable? Would it be hitting harder? Would it not be hitting it? Would it taste different?
Oh, it'll crash. You know what I mean? You'll see it like crash a little bit or,
What you mean separate?
Yeah, separate.
For the average person.
Yeah. So you'll see separation. You'll see a layer, you'll start seeing some, people call it like the red layer, or they're called, discoloration, or they're called oxidation or whatnot. But that has, again, it's not just the oil and how it was made, but it's also some of the other ways and how it's being heated and some of those things, right? You don't want to run it too hot, depending on the type of oil that you have. So there's a lot of, what I'm saying, it's almost a complex system built on top of another one, on top of how a user is going to use it. So the variability between that is so many areas where you can mess up or something cannot work.
Well, and PSA, don't keep your vape in your car where it gets 120 or 150 degrees and then be like, man, this thing just ain't hitting right. It literally, like I've gotten in so many people's cars where they're pulling out vapes and I'm like, damn, that shit was just sitting in the car baking for a month, And it just, this right here is such a nuanced science and we're just getting to explore this could you tell me about a few of the flavors we have in front of us?
Yeah, man. So obviously, flavor hunting is like one of the best things. That's one of the things I say too. If you're a hardware, producer like we are, and we say that you claim from coming from the space, like I got the authenticity and genuinity part's important. If you don't have fire oil and fire hardware, you're not from the space. Like I just full stop, right? It's just not being authentic. And so, I think some of these one thing I told you earlier is like, I don't like to put people's name in my mouth and stuff like that. I don't do that. But if I give shout outs, I will do that from a positive side. But like, yeah, man, some of these strains of fire, right? The Mimosa, that's from like a year and a half ago. That's a great one. Forbidden Fruit's always a good one.
I saw that one. I can see that listed.
There's some cookie strains here that are fire too.
What's your favorite?
all
Because
time?
obviously, give us the all time, but then give us what's on the table, your all time favorite.
Shout out to Rocky over at Lemon Tree and some of those guys. But their Kiwi Tree's fire. That's what this dark one is. I mean, this is it's a very unique. It's specific. One of the other ones that we like is Candy Apple. This one is like that. That's a whole nother thing too. Is depending on where it's grown and how it's grown. Like
what's that one right there in your hand?
It's Candy Apple.
Candy Apple. And the other one is the actual strain of flower.
So smell this. That's liquid live. So that's like a full spectrum live resin. Right?
So this is live resin.
Oh yeah, that's full on live. So the stats on that would be like 40 to 50% THC, like maybe 15 to 20% A. Maybe like 7 to 10% terps, and the rest are all minors. So
this reminds me of when extraction was at its peak, I would say.
Smell this. So this is rosin of that same strain.
Today's episode is brought to you by Grow Generation. If you're looking for a one-stop hydro shop, GrowGen's got everything you need. Lowest prices in town or the price match for you. From plugs, newts, pots, soil, lights, turkey bags, vac bags, scales, they've got it all. Trust me. Whether you've got a rec facility, a trap, or a tent, GrowGen's got you covered with 50 plus locations nationwide. Or you can visit growgeneration.com and use the code FIRSTSMOKE10 to get 10% off.
Oh, wow. So
right? I see how which one's brighter?
Obviously the butane extraction or propane or whatever this is or some.
But not by color. I'm just saying by let it. We'll taste it too. Like that's.
I won't lie. I want this one. This one smells
so that's
incredible.
Super interesting. I love.
But I'm a BHO guy, and like I battle with rosin guys all the time. Where I'm like, there's so many strains that don't rosin well that people would love to enjoy the terpenes from. Like it kills me that we're in this bubble of rosin. Like I love rosin too. I smoke it. I have hash holes, but. God, dude,
there's
come
the purists
on.
too. It's like, look, shout out to all the hash heads, right? Shout out to all the hash makers because like they're. You do God's work, in my opinion, right? Like the artists are on hash. This water hash is it's one of the oldest and most fire ways, right? And all the tech that's coming on around is so amazing. There's very few things that create that ability to do that. But I think, like again, there's certain parts that come off of it that are different that create different flavors. So it's funny to give blind taste somebody. And then they're like, oh, I'm a flower guy. You could tell by if they're a flower guy or if they like some other things or if they're like a bourbon person or that because they'll try and they're like, ooh, I like this one. And it's like, oh, this one, because it tastes a little bit like herb, right? It's still fire, right? There's certain strains that are just so amazing in rosin extraction. And then when you get them into resin, it's just like brighter. It's all these other things. And it's just super fire. So
I know, and that's I lived through the wave of when this really hit in butane and propane extraction, and I say propane because there's a lot of mixes with butane and propane, but at its peak when we're getting Skittles, fresh harvests, and we're getting all these strains, these boutique harvest strains, these small batch, and we're getting the best extraction with actual proven like, hey, there's no solvents left in this, and still people had a hard time with it. So give us the rundown of what you're doing now.
I'm just like, people, don't do this at home. You're gonna, because some of our hardware has got this low torque capping mechanism, so you can just do it by hand. So sometimes you gotta have a little steady hands, right? And these are some little taster, quarter gram, all ceramics that we have.
You're the first person to come on the show and actually.
I just need a little napkin just so that I can make sure that it's nice and clean for you.
We got you, man. Our behind the scenes team. Big shout out, Josh. So you're basically filling carts.
I just filled the cart. Like, I mean, I told you I have a syringe. We do it that way, but sometimes I just pour it. I haven't done that in a minute, but
No, you're good.
I'll give you this.
I mind a little bit of an extraction spill, man.
No, it's all good. It's funny because like I'd be very curious, like because of the viscosity of this one, it should wick pretty fast, and like you have a battery. We have a battery over there.
Yeah,
I'm very curious to get your like feedback when you hit this. It'll be fun. And then what I'll do is I should fill, shout out Rocky, the kiwi tree, and you know how different that flavor is.
Dude, that
I think he gave me that like 2 years ago. So like that's how still it'll still be really good.
Who grows that flower?
No, so it's their genetic.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's the flower you brought too.
Yeah, that's almost.
I mean, it reminds me of something old school and new school. Beautiful terpene profile. I like the cart too, man. I like that you're onto ceramic. Like I see a lot of hardware. I have not seen this hardware before. And I know with this game, the more and more I talk to big rosin companies and companies trying to move into the mobile space, I call it mobile, is that hardware is the biggest issue with everybody. It seems like no one, either they're developing their own hardware or everyone jumps on a wave and then they jump on the next wave and the next wave. And so you'll see carts go through the industry where every company will start to, or a lot of companies will start to use these certain carts, and then those will start to fail and they'll switch to a new brand or switch to a new, and you're seeing it all over the place. That's why I like when companies come on and have their own hardware that I have not seen before, because it means that they do their due diligence. It's not just, hey, well, this company uses it. And yeah, I mean, good resin. I like how clean it tastes.
So this is, I think, in the rosin. This is in the rosin, same strain.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is exactly when I'm looking to buy a cart that's not a rosin cart and I'm looking for a butane extraction or solvent-based extraction, like this is exactly what I'm looking for. This one you just pull on, right? Yep. Oh, yeah. For people that are just listening, we're going through and we're taste testing a bunch of different resins that are on the table. Active has probably 30 to 40 different resins out with 15 different hardware options. I mean, this is a spread right here. This is why I keep going back to like, I see all the different names of strains and everything's smelling really good.
You see how it's just different?
This is for flower smokers.
That's what I'm saying, right?
That's for extractions. But I'm a flower smoker. I might go against the grain. I like that. But I know exactly what you're talking about with this because I hit this and I'm like...
It's got that front end that's the same, right? The flavor. But then it goes into kind of like, I'm smoking a joint, right? Or kind of more and more... It's got some of the more plant... Yeah, it's got the whole plant stuff. This gets... It like, it's bright, it punches you, and it just stays there. Because then that's a lot of the monos, right? Like, that's what's happening, like... That's what, hydrocarbon's going to capture that in a live perspective, right? It's just catching it.
Why did you hand me this for rosin and that for resin?
Oh, just because I should have filled maybe the same thing, but it's just easy for me to fill because it's otherwise I got to heat this thing up.
I didn't know if it was specific burning temps or if it was wicking temps or anything, because that is hidden.
Yeah, no, that device particularly is kind of tuned for high quality extracts, right? They're a little bit more volatile. That's our node. And like, there's got some NFC tech on that too, so you can connect to, to a website or some of the other things and engage your customers. Could be a marketing tool as well. But the tech inside of that thing is all about flavor preservation. There's other components and other, quality control and standards and tolerances that go in so that it can kind of, like for rosin, it's just different, man. It's just a different animal. And that's obviously an important part of what we do as well.
You know how I know it's good? Because I keep wanting to hit it. And I swear to God, and I put it down and I'm like, you know what? Let me hit this thing again. Because I was about to burn down this hash hole. And I'm like, I can tell when this would be something I would stick in my pocket and leave the house with. And if I feel that way, I know that it's quality. Because the amount of pens and shit we get handed is madness. And this is a rare quality. I can honestly say that. We get a lot of pretty pens. That's probably the best way to put it. Oh shit, this is interesting hardware. Okay,
so so what's cool about that hardware is one of the things that we did. That's the select brick, and that product right there. So a lot of people don't know, right? Obviously, Active has a lot of these different pieces of hardware, 510, different disbar all-in-ones, and obviously there's a lot more development in the future of what we do. But one of the things that we did over the last 10 to 12 months is we did a custom project with Curaleaf, the brand name known as Select that's out there. And that product has been the most successful launch in their history, right? I think their CEO shouted out that it did $1 million in like 6 days, 7 days or 2. I forgot what it was. But like that project is something that's really important to kind of highlight about just the evolution of us, right? And then the beginning of how it started, we can kind of go back to some of those pieces and the roots of Active and what we formerly were and how we kind of got to where we are today. Because it's, again, back to the whole point of evolving, right? Knowing a different game and then realizing, oh, you have to play on this level. And so that project was incredibly fulfilling, but at the same time, like eye-opening that doesn't work without a great partner. And so just to shout out Curaleaf and Select, they were a great partner. Like it was 6 or 7 departments, right? Working in cohesion with our team over
Very
like
difficult.
8 to 10 months, right? And to bring a product that's, I think it's $2 million, right? And just the design of it and everything that's happened, it's been a huge success for them. And we've been super proud of that. And to be able to support them on that and develop, design, and commercialize that product. And that's another example of some of the stuff that we have evolved into outside of just like, hey, we understand oil, we understand the different ways it has to interact with the hardware. But one of the biggest things for us in the new messaging, right, is that like, it's just highlighting. It's not something that is changed per se in that way. The only thing that's changed is the name. And really it's for us is to highlight our people, the relationships, diversifying supply chains so people know that there's safety around what we're doing, right? So that we can be reliable. That's one of our calling cards. One of the fourth things is design capabilities. Creating a commercialized product that differentiates your brand. Because as you see a lot of consolidation, things that are happening, that becomes really important. And over all of that, right, it's our dedication and promise to serve our clients. At the end of the day, we value, one of the core values that we have is talks about, we call it hugs over handshakes, because it's about really valuing the partnership and not the transaction. Like, we might mess around, you're a brand, right? And there's a part of me that's like, hey, look, I'll smoke with you. We'll probably burn one down, have a beer, hang out, laugh, talk about life and fun things. It doesn't mean that we need to do business. You know what I mean? So like for me, like I think for our team as well, and that's organizations, we value the relationship and not the transaction, but more so the way that the partnership, right? And that's an important part because look, the plant in a lot of ways, it is a partnership with the plant.
Yes.
We're serving what she does and what she's done across generations of time, right?
And trying to innovate upon that with whatever tools are in the marketplace right now. Because every year we find extractions changing and evolving. We're starting to use things from restaurant.
Yeah.
We're starting to use all this different shit starts to come in play. And the amount of expertise entering the space in extraction alone is like gasses me up, man, because like this is fire, bro. I'm a big flower smoker. I smoke hash holes. Obviously, I smoke flower. I mean, I've been growing for 25. This right here, exactly what I'm looking for when I buy a pen. And people will think I'm gassing it up and shit, but I'm a big fan of this mobile smoke. My dad, this is all he'll do. My people in my family, this is the most discreet way of moving around and still being able to be a stoner or an active stoner. And so talk about, I love the name. Dude, no lie. Shout out Ray for a year of back and forth. But when Ray and I spoke, when he told me the name, and he'll vouch for this, the first thing I said was, great name. Was it not?
I mean, look, we've had a lot of internal talk. Like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Of course.
There's no way. I'm like, there's no way. Like, I think, again, shout out to our excellent people internally in GC. And it's like, I know he's like, I wake up sometimes, cultivators, I just check. Just to make sure that like, this is real, that we can have that. So it's been a whole team effort, man. Like at the end of the day, like, you can't take all this shit with you, right? And so it's the journey that you're on, and it's who you're on it with. And I think that's a core, again, back to core tenets and values. That's one of the core tenets around our organization.
Where'd you get your business sense? Because you're very business minded, but at the same time, I know off camera we got to talking about your background, and that's very much like a lot of us in the industry. I call it digging ditches, but it's put in the hard work that makes a difference that a lot of people don't see over a long period of time. And next thing you know, you're like, oh shit, we don't have floods anymore. And it's like, well, yeah, that guy's been digging the ditch for 30 years, right? But that's really what it is with this industry, where they're like, wow, look what we're innovating upon. It's like, yeah, that guy was in the field plucking buds off, doing hand washes in jars, trying to figure out percentages per strain. And now guys can literally touch a plant and say, yeah, this will wash well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you'd have told me that 5 to 10 years ago, I'd have been like, bullshit.
Yeah.
Like what does he want? 10,000
What type of hippie magic is he running, right?
Yeah. It's, but I do want to dive a little bit into what you want to talk about how did you find this passion for extraction? Were you around some growers? Were you around some people because the amount of R&D and loss you have to take to get to this level, you got to be working with some good people. Calling all growers drip powders, clean, consistent, customizable. Drip powders are not just another salt. This line is innovative, balanced, and unique compared to anything else on the market today. They separated the micros from powder A into powder D, allowing cultivators to steer out nitrogen towards the end of the bloom cycle for better flavor, better terpene production, and overall ripeness. You only need to run a 2.6 EC for maximum flavor, lower costs for higher yields. Chase those terps and feed your fire Drip Hydro. If you want to access Drip Hydro nutrients, all you have to do is go to growgeneration.com and use the code FIRSTSMOKE10. Get hooked up.
That it's a multi-layered question, and it is a good one. One of the things I try to tell people when you're in cannabis and stuff, like, it's a license to invest money. It's not a license to make money. People are like, what does that mean? It's honestly, man, it's curiosity. It's just like when you ask about the business sense, it's always been like a insatiable curiosity. Like, I played sports all my life, so I love strategy. And it just started by helping a friend. To be honest, it was always, the plant has guided my life in so many different ways. And that's one of the hippy dippy things I say about me outside of all the business talk stuff that I'm talking about, right? It's because when I look back at it, it's just like, it's crazy, man. We're in the weed business, and have incredible human beings that are reliant on what we do and the decisions that we make. And there's a lot of responsibility to that, right? And I think that was kind of the call to action even on the ITC and the legal side. And I think I see that from a regulatory side. Like, if it's not us, then who? If it's not us, who's supposed to do that? Who's supposed to go up there? Because I want to give them an A. I don't want to have to go do it. I like to chill. It's like, let's go smoke, and we don't have to go in front of cameras and do stuff like that. But it's just that's a curiosity, right? And from a business perspective, it wasn't just I love oil and doing that. It was just when I was younger, I like smoking herb. And I think that, and then it was just an opportunity to I can do land development. I can do, it just one thing led to another of just, all you need is a thread, and you pull that thread and it starts unraveling. And when you unravel, you're like, oh, that's interesting. Hey, do you know anything about this? Hey, I know someone that does. Oh, let me call them. And then you start talking, you're like, oh, cool, that's cool. Hey, what would you do if you were me here? Oh, okay. Go work your ass off. And hey, I did that. And you're like, oh, that's really cool. You should, so literally, sequentially, just over a long period of time, that's what it is. Again, hardware business, side hustle. It had nothing to do with being we're going to be a hardware business. It was hey, we need to solve a problem. We have leaking hardware, right? And so, we've had issues with previous partners, and it's there's a whole story around all that, right? And obviously, it's a part of some of the things that you will have heard. And it's interesting, right? Because throughout that time and that evolution, we worked with a trading company, right? And then we started working with a factory, and then we worked with understanding the supply chain and controlling the supply chain, because that's what they all protect, just like in herb. The analogies all exist, and it's funny if you can flicker between what that shade of the same color is. So protecting your connects, protecting your supply chain, right? Similarly, but then we needed to understand the supply chain if we're going to mess with this kind of oil. So it's something that needed to help us solve a problem for ourselves for also the industry, and we had friends. Oh, let's try this. Oh, I'll validate that. And that just literally one thing led to another. It was just like something that, oh, it's going to help us, right? We're going to get maybe some better cogs. At that time, like carts were like 30 to 40% of the cogs. It was expensive, you know? And so that was also helped us. And then can we have less failures? Can I tune it better for the flavor? Can I turn this down? Can I ramp it better, right? So I don't have to change all the extraction methods. How do I stabilize this? These are all the questions that we were asking ourselves. And as we, over time, doing that, I think, you know, Active, formerly AVD, has really grown and evolved from that. And through that process, we've learned about global supply chains. We've learned around things get effed up when you get millions of pieces of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, there is a quality control and an assurance, right? Where did the raw material come? It's all this, but because guess what? We smoke herb, we extract, we smoke oil, do dabs, smoke hash, you know, eat edibles, drink, we do all the things, right? So I'm consuming it. What's in it? Like, what's the quality? Is piece one as good as 10 million? Is piece one as good as 100,000? Like, you've always seen the bait and switch. I mean, you see that like, you see it all the time. So that's so important because, like, well, if I'm consuming, if my friends are consuming, if some of the other people are, it's fiduciary. It's how you do anything is how you do everything. That's one of the things I try to say a lot, right? Is that, like, that's an important part to us.
It's a rare tactic, though, and it's a rare thing in you to say, well, I want to produce stuff of the quality that I would smoke. Yeah. And I would want people to smoke. That's not everybody. So that basis alone, to start there, that's foundation for all the top brands. You hear that amongst, we've had the top brands come on, the first thing they say is, well, I wouldn't want to put out anything I wouldn't want to smoke.
So I'm saying what I love most is, like, you just said it, I'm a flower smoker, burn this hash. You rip that, you're like, ooh, this is good. Why'd you hand me this? And that's a really good question, right? Because I'm like, oh, it's because we tuned that device for rosin. That's why. And I know the viscosity of the rosin, and I know how it was washed, I know how it was posted, and I was just like, yeah, it needs to be in there, you know?
It has something that I don't get out of pens.
It holds it too, though. You know what I'm saying?
It's potent. This is potent too.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get that. A lot of times that's why people are like, I got to go take a real dab.
Yeah.
That I do not feel that with this. And I smoke, I'm just being honest, and people are going to be like, oh, but I mean, I smoke hash holes.
You'll still go take a real dab,
I would, but I would stick this in my pocket, and this would be something I'd leave the house with every day. And I know when I feel that way, you got a great combination of the right resin, the right temperature, the right hardware, which for me, knowing as a business person, that just means loss, time. Like, you're making it sound, building your team and this business, and then even the rebrand and the amount of work it takes to get here. A lot of business owners will be like, holy shit, that's a lot of time and loss and effort, where it was just organic journey for you.
Yes. We're very fortunate to be self-funded. We don't have outside investors. Everything that's been kind of built is through it's chosen family, right? In a lot of ways. It's been interesting because some of the people been with us since 10, 15 years. Some people, you know, like on a high level side, there's nobody that's ever really left the roost in a lot of ways, right? Everyone kind of pulls on the rope, right? And there is a conviction around it because there's a value base around it. We have an organizing principle on our values because, like, think about this. Let me ask you something. So think about somebody that, like, you just don't jive with no more, right? Somebody that you're like, like, oh, I like them, but man, you can get me here, you can do that. And then there's just someone who's like, they just like kind of fizzled away in your life, or somebody that like, I'm gonna fuck with that dude, right? Because obviously that's another part, right? Let's just full disclosure from people from legacy.
In business or for personal?
Well, I'm gonna clarify that, right? So just for the listeners and doing that, like from the trap to the legacy, you want to do that, however you want to look at it. Your bond is your word. You do what you fucking say. It's as simple as that. Don't commit to doing something you can't do, right? Man's only good as his word, right? And so, look, that's important in certain ways because, like, think about from a value perspective. If someone violated that, you're like, I don't know if I like that or doing that. So, like, kind of think about that. So people in personal or business that have maybe left or no longer around your circle of influence, why do you think that is?
Oh, they worked their way out through trial and tribulation and just acting. They get comfortable in their ways and you're like, oh shit, that ain't the way I do things.
It doesn't, you just said that, it's not the way I do things. It doesn't associate with your values.
No.
And that is really important, right? And so any type of team building and culture building, they have to associate with your values. That's why our greatest asset at Active, and it always will be in any organization that I think the core team, leadership team, and myself are going to be a part of, is it's going to be people. It's everything has been driven by people, right? It's not, somebody at Coca-Cola. It's somebody at Coca-Cola, right? So if any of our people at Active and our team get in front of people, they're going to realize that these are real people. These are people that care. They're going to do a great job. They're going to deliver service. At the end of the day, if you're not adding value, what are you there from a business perspective? What are you doing? Right? If you're not adding value, then you can't make money. And if you don't make money, then you don't have a business. So it's all kind of feeds into itself, right? And throughout all of that, right, we all change as people as well, right? I'm a different human than I was 5 years ago than I am today, and so are you, and we will be in the future. Our kids grow, right? Some of these things. And a business does that too. The people within that business do as well. And I think that's a great lesson in the cannabis industry. I know people talk about the dog years and all these things, but again, back to the organizing theme of know the game you're playing and the players on it. Each of the jurisdictions, legalities, all different cycles of their games at different times. So it might have been infancy for you or us, right, in doing that. So I think it's important to be aware of some of those things, and it always comes and drives back to people. And that's one of the things like when I thought about, when the team said, come here and talk to you, it's like, that's the thing I like highlighting more than anything. Is that like, I want to be here if it weren't for all those people, right? They're the ones that make the world go round. And I think it's an amazing thing because the plant brings those people together. Like, dude, over the next 2-3 decades, like people talk about billions, it's going to displace trillions of dollars around the world. If you understand the derivatives, right? All the other byproduct stuff that it can do, right? And not even just the one part, that certain parts that keep it a essential business, let's just say, right?
Yeah.
You know, things that get people high. So it's like it has all those things. And I think, yeah, man, it's just been an incredible journey in some of those things. And so that's a part of kind of the way that we view the world a little bit.
Where do you think, or where do you see extraction innovating now forward? Because you see where it is now, you see what we're dealing with. Like, what do you think's on the next frontier of this? Is there anything you're betting on? Because I meet a lot of rosin guys. I meet a lot of guys doing more small batch, but not as deep into the extraction methods. And so that's why I ask, because I've yet to see this much live and HTFSE and flavors and then different consistencies and
like let me see,
because just you like, look at this, like, this is like here on the camera, it's like this is almost like water, right? Like look at that. I mean, that's this reminds me of when people would hand me terps, where it's like perfume.
You see the viscosity of this one, right? And then you'll see this, right?
Oh man, that smells great. And this is all cannabis derived.
That's
obviously.
3 years old. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. You can tell too, because with the right extraction, it keeps the actual essence of the plant. I don't get like distillate reflavored as mimosa.
There's none of that here.
But there's a lot of that in the industry though.
Yeah,
and that's what gives it a bad name.
It's like we feel like we're going to bring up like there's the only thing I think about is because like look, there's a place for high THC cannabinoids and botanical terps and flavors, and that's where the world's because of e-cig, all this. I get that. I just make it sure it's clean and make sure it's going through the right type of hardware. And we have hardware that's suited and performs trucks through that stuff, right? But we also have this other, like when you go to more complexity like this, it's easy to go back to simplicity. So for us, that's the baseline of all the things that we have, right? So like, I don't want to sit here and bash distillate and high THC and botanicals because like there's a place for that, right? I mean, you see it all over the world, right? And at the end of the day, like that's just as important. Because that is the consistency that the industry is built around. It's also access for more people in their introduction to the plant. One way or another, at a different stage of their lives, they're going to be trying that or trying a drink, right? Yeah. A nice social tonic, if you will. You know what I mean? Or a little edible right there. Everyone is at some point and phase of their life that will have some sort of interaction. Not every, but the majority. And there's going to be a different way of a delivery system or how that's going to work. So I don't have anything at the end. We're actually excellent at that. But this is where our passion is, right? Like it's important, right, to understand that it's also just positive, again, to the point. Like if you make something harder to make, to go to something easier is a lot simpler.
What about for people trying to build, so maybe it's them and their buddy who works for them and they're trying to build a brand, right? Which means multiple people working towards a goal. What would you say some of the foundation points are, or the essentials for you when you're trying to organize people to help you on this journey and believe in this journey as much as you do, at least, or hopefully?
I never really thought about it that way. I just kind of like, in my mind, like, oh, this is just what we're doing.
I can tell your energy, you're a battery. And so you attract people who want to be around that. I can just tell, because when I get around people like that, I leave with more energy than I came with. And so for hours, I'm thinking about the combos I had, and then the lessons that apply to my life, and the things I took from speaking to someone in a different position or had a similar journey, but in a different niche, or sees the industry in a different way. You know,
the biggest advice I can give to any entrepreneur, and maybe that's the question framed in a little way, is it that way, is fail fast and fail forward. And the reason why I say that is because, and if you're young, don't be afraid to take risks and think big, right? I think if you know that you have time and you're going to adapt, like practice resiliency, I think you'll find your way, right? I think you'll find the things. If you have the idea, if you're the type that's a visionary, that's going to have a ton of ideas, get around with somebody that executes, gets an executor, get somebody that takes care of the day-to-day, and communicate well. That's an important part. Unfortunately, when we grow up and do what we do, there is nobody doing it, so you just do it. And then you do it like, oh man, I don't want to keep doing this, man. It's like, I need to get some help. Like that's just...
Creatives attract creatives, and then you get around a bunch of people with great ideas and no executors. And I don't want people to fast forward past that, rewind that and re-listen to that, because that's something I've dealt with, and I know Pac has dealt with a lot, is dreamers and creatives versus executors. And I can even think of growers as two different types. If they start talking about strains and what they got growing and the flowers, and they don't, if they go into the build out, the cost, all that type of stuff, the plumbing, it's the two completely different sides of the brain. And once in a while, 5-10%, you get both. But yeah, you're 100% on with that, because to have that is essential and not easy.
Yeah, some of the quotes from some mentors that I've had, right, is like, execution trumps, I think strategy all day of the week, right? You have to be rooted in execution. You got to get shit done. The other one is culture eats strategy for breakfast, right?
Ooh, wow.
That's a good one.
That's a great one. It's all the stuff we work on with First Smoke of the Day too. So it applies to anybody.
You got to get you got to get the trend right. We're lucky. Weed is a great trend. Just don't think it's going to be 2 years and what you thought was going to happen is going to happen. I think we've all been humbled by that, right? It's all cycles, right? You're on the same racetrack. You're going around in loops, right? At certain times, you're going fast. Things are good. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh man, that's someone's got to hit the brakes.
Yeah.
And I think to your point on the rewind of that, it is important. You have to execute. You have to get the right people around you. If it is not you doing that, right, it's an important part. And I think but don't be afraid to fail, man. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid to go learn. That's, another great quote that I say to my kids, you either win or you learn,
What's it like being a father in this space?
Oh man, so like
I like how you rubbed your brow before you answered that real quick. Yeah.
I think I was talking to you about that a little bit, asking you about kids and
goals.
Kids and goals and stuff. Another concept from someone I learned from, right, is the spheres of influence, right? You have work, you have your relationships with people, friends, your significant other, your kids, and then you have your personal. Sometimes your personal gets really small when work becomes the biggest thing. Your relationships get small too, right? So at different cycles and phases of your life, right? Just like the industry may or may not, you gotta be aware of that. So, when you have kids for the first time, you think the world is different than what it is. And that reality, the gap of that reality, you got to think about it instead of just kind of going on autopilot, and I think that the difficulty is not being about cannabis or this, that, and the other. It's just about my time. my presence around them, right? Sometimes the worst thing that can happen, sometimes it happens to me with adults, and people around here tell you that all the time. Oh, Alex is here, but he is not here. And that's sometimes the worst, right? If you're on your thing, like how can you put it away and just really be present? And the thing that I'll tell you, and I don't know any other parents out there, what I notice, right, is that like kids at a young age, right, they're the most present human beings. They don't have other things to, like, it's like, oh, why'd you do that? Why'd you jump at it? You're putting your adult mind into it, right? But they're like, oh, in the moment, spontaneously, it's like, this will be fun, and they'll just do it. Or they'll just be like, oh, I don't know, I just did it, and you're like, that's pure presence, right? They're not thinking about anything. And that's really, I think over time, one of the hardest things to do is to I don't even want to say balance, just be aware of the choices that you're going to make, because each of those choices have consequences. I think that's when I think about it, right? Why I rub my brow and think about it, it's like that's a never ending cycle, because they're at a different age at a certain point. Mm-hmm. And so are you. And the business is, oh, you're here, we're moving to a new spot, we're taking off, it's going viral, right? And then like something happens at home, it's like there's a choice there.
Yeah.
And that always is, and whatever it is, that's why I was trying to say when we started, like, problems and opportunities are two sides of the same coin. A problem or an obstacle is a call to action for you, the person, to grow on the other side of solving it, right? The less time you take to face it, fail fast and fail forward, right, is just more pain that is created. So it's just trying to be aware of that. And I think for us, philosophically, right, really for me, those fears, try to be aware of that. And in cannabis in general, again, very graced and blessed that we have, we don't have outside influences dictating what we're thinking about. So we get to take a longer approach. And it's why it's people first. That's why it's the plant and understanding what needs to happen, right? Because we can be thoughtful about, where maybe the puck is going.
You think that would change with legalization?
I just think legalization is just going to add more gasoline to everything, man.
Yeah.
Everything you thought was going to happen. But then there's going to be little nuances, right? Like, it's hard to say. I'm not going to like prognosticate or forecast on that, right? Because it's not a knowable fact yet. When it happens and it becomes knowable, then there might be some information that we could be thoughtful about. But until then, I try not to spend so much time thinking about that.
Yeah. What do you think about the THCA? I'm sure you've been talked to about the THCA side of the extraction business, and that being the first open federal asset that you can. What do you think about that? I'm sure people have been talking to you about wanting to do it, because the thought of flower is still stinky and still has to be traveled, and it still looks like this done properly is probably a lot easier to get off and move as THCA, I would think, because it feels more pharmaceutical. Extraction does. Flower, if you tell me it's THCA and I'm looking at it and it looks like weed and smells like weed, I think it's weed. And it's like, well, it is weed. So where this, it's like, there's nicotine, there's non-nicotine, there's so many forms of it that the market's massive.
You're talking about on THCA?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, look, this is where like language gets in the way, right? Like, flower, when you test it, and depending on when you test it, it has a decarb yet, so it's virtually THCA, and so like it's a loophole, just like the hemp market of CBD. Think about what happened, right? CBD, bunch of investment, people going, I'm going to do this big refinery, I'm going to take it from oil and gas, and I'm going to run all these stills.
Filling fields.
Yeah, like I got a bunch of isolate and kilo prices, right? Then people realize what we've known for a really long time, CBD by itself doesn't do much, right? It's not like this. People also want to feel something, right? But then a bunch of scientists in the US got smart. It's like, oh, I know what we can do. We can convert it into something that gets you a little high. But it's sourced from CBD, right? So then you saw Delta-8, HHC, other, hexacannabinol or something. Sometimes the scientific names like leave me there. And then like you saw THCO, P, and then now THCA. And like THCA is one of the funniest things, right? Because it's like when you purify the plant, it's you can't discern between THCA from cannabis and discern it from hemp. So it's a molecule, right? And so that in of itself, right? What people don't realize, right, is that hemp has created its own secondary market, right, that exists. And, whether it's illicit gray or or regulated, right? It's somewhat gray. So you're going to see a lot of people taking risks there and going fast because they got to hit that timing button until some other change that happens, right? Again, flash in the pan, you've seen a lot of these, right? It can do that, or it could be here to stay and it establishes itself as a totally different distribution channel that is now, it could be accretive to the state-by-state cannabis channel. It could not be. Again, I'm not going to go into, I have my own thesis about what's happening, where we are in the sea changes of where we are. But I what I would say is that it's hard. It's hard to see what's happening, but I would say entrepreneurs are very savvy, right? And I think that's what you've seen, the proliferation of that market. And THCA is just another example of that, because what's going to happen regulatory-wise. But when people ask that question, the timeline before something does happen, there's a lot of businesses and a lot of money that's made, and it gets super aggressive because it's a very different open channel.
It's very interesting. I mean, I had just run into someone who he's a grower, but stops smoking regular flower and smokes hemp, right? Or CBD flower, but hemp. And it's being grown in LA in literally a badass indoor garden. And they're selling it in eighths, but because it's hemp and because it's high-end hemp, they can sell it off a website to the whole country. And he's like, I smoke this because I don't get the panic attacks I was getting with the amount of stuff on my plate as an entrepreneur. He's like, I just can't smoke that heavy, but I have that in me. But I just thought it was very interesting because I've now run into people in different parts of their life where I'm like, oh, that does make more sense, because not just because I'm not that person or that consumer doesn't mean that's not a massive part of the business.
And look, man, there's different experiences for different environments. Like, you're not going to get blasted when you're, going to do whatever, if you need to functionally go do something, right? And I think that's also a different thing if you're going to a concert, right? Or if you're trying to go watch a funny movie. I think
soccer game.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think makes you guys different than a lot of the other companies out there that are in the hardware/extraction space?
No, I mean, look, I want to clarify that. Active is not in the extraction space. That's just some of our roots, right? It's something that we talk about because it's a part of me that can't leave me, if you will, right?
I can tell.
Again, it comes back to knowing what you're doing and being authentic in your true self and what you guys are, what we say we are and what we come from. We come from the space, and we've had to learn the different language of the boardroom and corporate finance and understand balance sheets, understand how to actively run your P&L and understand the cash flow statements, and make sure that you understand the different levers to make sure you have a prudent business versus ones that don't make money, right? Or have silly fundamentals, right? That are just kind of a racetrack coming to an end. And I think that's very important to have sound fiscal strategies. But to come back to that, as far as what makes us different, I think that is a component because it's driven by people. Again, I'm going to go back to that, is that I think what makes us different than anybody is the human beings that work and that are team members and that are driven and passionate about Active and our clients, right? At the end of the day, our job is to serve you, Black Leaf, other clients. We have to bring value, man. And we got to do it by understanding what we're saying we're doing and why we do it. And how we go about doing that and the type of way that we're going to carry ourselves is very important. To me, I think that's an important stewardship of the industry. It's the only way that I can continue to give back in my mind to the way that it's been so good to a lot of the people that we know, right? Now, there's been a lot of horror stories as well, obviously, that we've heard, but genuinely the good people and the people that are passionate in what they're doing and staying fundamentally sound they're doing well. They're trudging along.
There's always going to be horror stories when you're breaking prohibition on something.
Yeah.
I mean, what do we see that every 100 years? Only for the last 200? You don't see it a lot in very many industries. We're pretty evolved in economics and business. So there's always going to be horror stories and there's always going to be these massive success stories, right? But I love this space and the innovation of the space. I always have, because of being from the grow side, to be able to see what can happen with great flowers. And then also even just with really good handled trim. I've had some extractions that were trim based that people were like, oh my God. But that would blow people's minds. And it was because it goes back to the fundamentals. Like you say, the guy will still blow a tube of BHO just for that. Man, we got this small batch forbidden fruit cross that we want to try out, and let's mix it with the triangle kush and see what that small batch would come out with. This is incredible.
That smells, I know, it's incredible. That's one of my favorite. Yeah.
Dude, for people that are just listening, this is Forbidden Fruit times Kirkwood OG. And it's all the best parts of Forbidden Fruit and all the best parts of an OG. It really is like, I love flowers and I'm a like cultivator. So I always go back to like, I don't really get sick of too many strains. I think I find the beauty in a lot of things. And so for me, Forbidden Fruit was such a rarity.
Oh yeah.
We haven't seen too many strains like that ever. The only thing I'd point to is like a purple tangy. But like this is just,
yeah,
this is what people want in their disposables or in their carts. Like this is exactly
that's why I saved that. That's multiple years ago, dude. That's like because I'm like, I want to find that one again.
To get that clarity and the way it's separated from, this is what I guess more THCA dense or THCA. Okay, so there you go. And then to have it that in this environment, it's probably 70, 72 in here, and to have it like this,
that's almost 3 years old. Yeah.
It just shows your passion. And when you say you're not an extraction company, to have people to work with of this caliber sets everything apart. Because when I'm looking for a vape, I can only pick maybe 2 or 3 in Cali that I've had that I'd be like, would put on this level, in my opinion. And they're the top names in the industry.
I mean, when you talk about differentiators, right? I think, again, it comes from the authenticity around that, right? But it's also like, if you think about like Active's advantage in a lot of ways, and it's our promise more than anything, is that we feel like we can help brands and companies have the winning edge. And the reason why we think we can do that is because we do all the fundamental things right as well. Like we're talking about some of the exotic stuff and some of the stuff, but like make no mistake about it. We do our daily workout, right? We make sure that there is consistency across the board. We have the best failure rate in the industry, bar none. It's not even close, right? And so like, I know I'll probably get in trouble for saying stuff like that, but I just over and over when you work with clients, they're just the level of consistency, because we care so much about it. It's the processes. It's also having the ability to be able to diversify. It's not just some things that we're in China. We're also outside of China, and that's really important to realize of the future. And again, it comes back to custom design products, right? And the way that they're brought together with our engineering, right? With our design team, with how does it meet your brand, right? What type of oil are you putting in it? What's your bread and butter oil, right? What's the exotic that you're going to try to run, right? What's the special drop that when I give to you, like, oh, that's fire. Because as you can see, as a hunt, I also want the best juices in my pocket too. Right? I want a cold start dab in my pocket, right? There's like just certain things, and just like, you know, like, so you see like that part of it, because we just know it's going to be something that's there. And again, like that's the fun part, man. And again, it comes back to not always what or how or some of these, it's who you on the journey with. And that is the thing I'm most grateful for. And that's will come through by adding value to listeners, other people, but also just in your lives, right? Like, how are you going to do that, right? And, yeah, I think it's a passion for the product. It's our people. Definitely the ability to diversify, and obviously our ability to help create custom solutions, but also just to know that we're reliable. And when you pick up the phone, you're going to talk to someone that is going to be engaging like this. You're not going to talk to somebody that's, you know, I'm not going to say, but in just general, you're going to talk to a real person.
And so could you show us that cart that you were showing me earlier?
Oh yeah. So this is an interesting product.
Very interesting.
This is so it's another special product that we did recently. Obviously the brick has been one of the most commercially successful, and shout out to all the boys at Curaleaf, because like that, again, to execute like supply chain, inventory, consistency, multiple markets, launch like that, to have that, it takes a village.
Build packaging around it, build branding around
the village, right? Yeah, and so for it to be as successful as they have in the history, look over that, it's just as much their success as anything we supported to do that. But again, it's hats off to their ability. But again, that's some of the capabilities that we have. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people don't know, because the joke around is like, oh, Active 510, you know? And so there's the joke that exists that, you know.
Still haven't seen those though.
Yeah.
I can honestly say all this hardware this was my favorite part about going to Vegas for some of the big conferences, is being able to see the innovation in spaces. I feel like people put their best foot forward because like I have yet to see these. I have yet to see what's in your hand. Could you explain that?
Yeah. So it's another custom project that we did for an up and coming Cali brand. I can't talk too much about it because the pedigree on that team is pretty interesting. Like there's some powerhouses. And so we've been working on a project for them to create a product, and it's a combinable device, right? So, just think about flavors, different ways, different,
So I can do two different flavors and then either combine them or hit them separately.
Yeah.
So, a gas and a strawberry banana and a pie ho, or a GMO and a Skittles.
Yeah.
And I can have two separate carts and then not have to pre-mix them. I can have my GMO cart, my Skittles cart, and then if you want a 50-50, put them together.
That's right. So like they can, and you can, cross like there's ways that like just think about all the different flavor combinations across different things that you can do, different types of oils. So it's really cool, right? Because we obviously know how to tune things really well. And look out for Looped. I think it's gonna be an interesting journey for them as they've launched in California, so they're about to. So
who's your prime customer? Is it because obviously,
who's our prime customer? Like, can you help me understand like a little bit more about like what prime means to you?
You're perfecting basically branded hardware for someone based on their needs of almost their consumer, right? Who are they targeting? Okay, they're targeting distillate, or they're targeting rosin, or they want something for everybody, whatever that is, right? And then they come to you and they say, this is our target market, or this is how we want to enter the space. What can we do together? I mean, like,
that's fun. Don't you wish that everybody had that clarity
when
they talk to you and what they want?
Well, because I'm always thinking brand specific, obviously my brand, and I'm like, oh, this is epic. When you guys are coming up with something like that, let's just say the two different flavor combo, who's your customer? Is it all brands worldwide? Is it USA based? Is it California based?
Look, depending on the client and depending on what their request is, obviously it goes through a vetting process in that because of how many resources that we're going to allocate to what the project may be, right? The client, the way that they will or will not get behind a product, right? Or if it's something that we create for generally, right? But again, I think what we're trying to highlight some of the things like a lot of people haven't seen these products from us, right? Because these products they're in the different library, right? Because like we also know that that's an important part, but all the ways that we view performance and consistency and value, that's all important. It's all embedded in everything that we do, and it's all rooted from understanding the plant and supply chains. Realistically, we have the passion for the plant, understanding it, but we're very detailed in the entire supply chain. From every little part that you can think about, so it helps us inform to be a better service to the client. So depending on the client on that size, that would do that. But normally there's always off-the-shelf stuff that we do, right? There's just standard customizations. There might be a premium customization that's a little bit of a shorter timeline, or there's a hyper one that's like a full build, right? And that's something specific that they're trying to hit. And I think that sometimes they have that, or sometimes we're developing those internally constantly, right? You always got to be innovating, and that's been a big engine in our house ever since, thank you, C-Cell and S'more, like, right? Since that time, I don't think a lot of people in the industry really realize, behind the scenes, our innovation engine and how big it got cranked on, and so that's what we're excited about. That's why the whole active side is so important. It's also, as you could see, a tribute to our roots.
Yes.
Active cannabinoids. You can see, I'm a super active person, but there's
active stoner. I can tell you're in shape. I can tell the amount of energy, like I already know.
And this is the way that our people carry themselves. It's proactive, right? We want to be enjoying that and experiencing life in that way. So it's also the promise that we have to our clients that we're gonna see the bump ahead, and we're gonna try to help you with that bump. Whether they listen or not, that's their own prerogative, right? But like we're gonna try to give what we know and continue to do that to add value to them. So I guess long way of answering your question short is it depends, but we have a flavor for people to be suited to in any which way that they go. And that's the beauty of it, because I think our team is going to give you a consultative approach, and they're going to give you great service. They're going to get questions answered.
Well, and it's your R&D process is deeper than I've ever seen on most people's hardware, just based on the different varies of extraction, like 25 different styles and viscosities, including ceramic carts. Like you're actually R&Ding it with stuff that people would actually want to smoke.
Yeah.
Not just distill it, put it in, and then it should act with rosin the same way, or it should act with, something with high terpenes the same way, or how does it cool down? Is it affecting the actual resin inside the cart? Like I really like this process. So if you're a hash maker and you're looking for hardware that's not leaking, or I've hit so much hardware where I can't get a hit. And that's where the label comes, like, let's actually take a real dab.
Yeah.
And then you find companies that have perfected their hardware based on high level extraction. And you have something like this, or like this.
On top of that, though, they got to have a flavor palette. So even like, look, a competitor, I'm not going to say like, competitors can't do that and do that. Because the world's getting globalized, right? I'm sure they're going to go set up things in other places and they're going to try to buy oil and do that. But to your point, you asked a very, very important question, because you're a grower and you see that, is that like, how many runs have you had to do? How many runs you have under your belt? That's really important. People don't know that, like, what I mean by fail fast, fail forward, this is a product of a lot of failure, a lot. And so it's like, some of these companies are going to get into space, they're like, great, go on that journey, And so it's interesting, right? Because I think that's, look, to your point, I think that's where a lot of the thinking comes from, to be able to do that from a hardware perspective, But like, again, it's the flavor palette, man. You got to be able to taste it too. Yeah. Like if I'm talking to you, even when we're smoking herb, like if we decide to transition to that, is that like, there's just some people that it can taste just the little subtle notes in some of those things. And it's the same in hardware. It's like, oh, I can feel it touching under the core. I can taste it doing that. Or the rosin's not flowing all the way through, because we also dab the rosin. We also smoked herb, right? So it's not just like, oh, I'm just huffing on vapes all day. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work like that, right? You have to have kind of the full spectrum, and then you realize that's what a hydrocarbon of that variety should taste like.
Yes.
That's what a clean rosin, right, should taste of it. How fresh is it? How old is it, right? These are some of the things that people don't really think about.
No, and it takes people in the space innovating the space. And I really believe in that. I personally think the future of cannabis is people who are in it now, who are just like you would a doctor. You hear a lot about doctors who will patent something, a tool or something in the process, and then that's how they make their real money. Mm-hmm. And then they do the doctorate side for however long based on passion and this and that. But I see that happening with the cannabis space, is that people coming up with like, why don't we have this? Or man, if people don't see this avenue or this opening, this space has so much of that. We've seen so much innovation in 10 years. It's unbelievable. I mean, to go back to pitch black, somewhat moldy, old school outdoor, like to think about where extraction was literally 15 years ago and to where it is now, I mean, night and day. To where you're actually smelling the terpenes from the flower, not
you're smelling the grow.
Dude,
like you're smelling the grow.
It's a shame. So you actually can't buy your hardware with hash in it. No, that's nuts. I say that just because of the quality.
It's a company that started before Active, and so like that. Obviously, we talked about some of the similar folks. I mean, we can talk about that off camera all day, but like we know a lot. It's funny, like when you go into these things, and again, when you're in it for a while, and then you're like, oh yeah, I know that person, and someone knows you who really knows you. Then like some interesting conversations come from that, right?
Oh yeah, they open up the closet, show all the skeletons, all the industry stuff. Man, so how can people find you? Where can they reach out to if they're interested in some of this hardware? Because just that, if I'm a rosin company or an extraction company, that double wide is what I would call. I mean, that's epic, bro.
Yeah, no, like that's a custom project that we did with a brand, and like I know that they're gonna, again, that's launching in Cali, and they came to us with a specific tenant, if you will, and then obviously, went through the process of how we vet whether or not we can create it and do all the things that we need to do, and we're excited to see what they do with it, right? In that brand, and so. I'm sure they'll work with other companies and how that is going to look. But we obviously design and manufacture the product, but we'll see what they can go do with it.
I love that. It creates a lot of openings for being able to stay strain specific per vape, but then also have combinations. So it's like, either or, best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I think if people want to come find us and do that and get engaged in a project similar to that, any of these other type of things, it's obviously our website is www.active710.com. And that's, our IG handles AVD710. It's acronym for active vapor devices at this stage. And, I'm trying to think what else that we have.
And we'll link all that below. So anyone just listening, that's all in the profile. You'll be able to get to Active, and definitely reach out. If you're in the hash business or let's just say,
some of the hash ones, like this is a product's coming out, like the leaf. This is like, some of it has been designed for it. It's fire, and this like more of a palm device, and it fits in your hand. We have the Axle device, which is like your kind of everyday go-getter, but we're able to tune it to work with a lot of different aspects as well. So it's commercially friendly, and it has tons of different customization abilities. Yeah, I don't want to get too salesy on this stuff, but obviously you see the custom products like the brick, and then some of these other pieces, like you've seen the looped device.
Dude, there's hash companies
and obviously some of these
that don't have the quality of hash that we're smoking out of your devices. I can honestly say that. Like that's crazy to say that people actually making hash and extractions. The quality. Like, what is this that you just handed me?
That's always the response.
Yeah. That's very different.
It's the one I told you was one of my favorites.
Okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, no, and
it's super.
People would be like, he's gassing them up, and I'm just like, nah, man, because it's rare you run into.
Nah, dude, that's weed.
Yeah, this is phenomenal.
You know that's weed, and that's like.
Well, and I'm looking at how it pulls it in all the way around.
Yeah.
Like the actual hardware, I'm a fan of too. I'm the type of guy who looks at all the little stuff, including the hardware. I understand the business because I'm friends with hash makers and people in this hardware business. And this is very cool, man. Very cool. This is what I want out of my cart. And then when I compare this to the top companies dropping product in California, like this is right in line with like stuff they'd want with their brand associated.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. It's a
fire. This one's hella different.
Yeah, I want to put this. I want to put this other flavor one because I know this one's. So like, there's like 3. So that's what's awesome when you juice hunt.
Fire.
When you juice hunt, right? Like real juice hunt. Like it's different. There's like that's what happens. Woo. When you do that. That's how you know, right? And so there's like, because what happens with people. This is funny. It's like when you give it to someone, that reaction where you just say like, ooh. Oh, what is that? So I have to go back in my mind to like 5 years ago. I'm like, ooh, what is that? And I have to always ask them like, oh, I want something. Like I just hunt, and right, and then I'm like, oh, and then you try another one because it's not just like there's other people, dude, amazing extractors. You guys know who I'm talking about. We're homies. There's all these other people that make fire oil. Some of these people I'm like, where'd you get the cut? But also what happens is they got it sourced. Right? They didn't control their supply chain. It's a little different. And so then you can't come back to that flavor. And that's why you see some of these, I just have a little left because I've been babying it for so long. You know what I mean? And so like, yeah, you want to get, because that's the response that you get because you're like, oh, dude, it's so good.
It really helps show your hardware off and how great it is when the flavor and the quality of the product is that high. It's like putting the right gasoline in a Ferrari before you drive it. It's like having the right tires. It's the whole thing, right? To where that when you get in the car and you really push it, you're like, oh, this thing's performing exactly how I want. Man, could you explain, what are in these 3 jars though?
Rosin.
That's rosin.
It's rosin.
I don't think a lot of people have seen that style of rosin.
So go ahead, open them up and see how different gas smells. So that's a GMO. So it's gonna smell. That's gonna be very familiar. Just a papaya punch, and this is a candy apple.
I'm a big fan of GMO.
You're gonna like that.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, you can tell. That's a lot of waft in nicely.
Oh, man, it's nice and light too. Meaning light as in it doesn't have that planty or like it went too long. Like this is bright. It's bright GMO.
It's a bright GMO.
Oh yeah, man. Very nice. Damn, rosin. Okay. I have yet to see too much rosin in this form. Candy apple.
Yeah, that's a unique strain for sure.
Oh yeah, wow.
I don't want to just.
This is like when people say I like Jack. I only say this is like.
Ooh, that's a good point.
This is the best part of Jack, and the reason that I think it is a good strain is this like bright, almost undertone that Jack gets when it's done really well. That candy apple has some of that.
So it's so interesting, man. Like that strain, like depends on where it's grown, right? And so like so a lot of people don't know that about, if you think about greenhouse and outdoor, like declination. The reason why certain fruits are grown in certain places is because naturally, not only from a farming perspective, the terpenes naturally come out more pronounced in that spectrum of spectrum of sun, amount of daylight, diurnal shift, leaf wetness ratio, all that play in soil, all plays into a factor of like why lemons are in certain places, orange trees are certain places, why apples, cherries, and apple, cherry, apricots are in North Central Washington, right? Why certain places, why wines are in certain, or grapes are in certain places, right? All those other areas, if grown in that natural growth season, it's going to accentuate its terpene floral amounts, right? If it's a more of a place because if you have like in northern latitudes where you have the sun fall off, it's in transition. So imagine that. So let's just say everyone knows if you're switching to flower, the day shift changes 12-12. So think about, in transition, certain strains like just jet, and they're in transition for like, week 1 or week 2 of flower, right? And they go and some go long. Well, if you're in northern latitudes, it's a longer day. So it will go longer and then it falls off a cliff. So it's like a shorter ripening season. So these are all different variances that happen unless you augment with greenhouse, supplemental lighting, or obviously if you're in an indoor.
And then we can even talk microclimates and how it still is different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love how heady we can get, that you're not just a hardware guy, but you're hardware centric, but you understand all aspects of your side of the business. And it goes back to where we started, is know the business you're in.
Yeah.
I love that you said that, because so many entrepreneurs, including myself, go into a business and not try to change it, but like get into it strong-headed, like nah, and then realize hard lessons along the way that like, well, I thought I could do it this way. Well, no, that's not the business you're in, or that's not the time period of the business you're in. And so there's certain games and certain things you kind of have to play while still keeping who you are. And I just, it all comes back to knowing the business you're in. I love that point about it, man.
Yeah, it's not only just know the business, but know the players on the field, right? And then again, it's about curiosity. When you ask how we got into it, it's just like one thing led to another, but you learn, if you're just aware, take a step back, And look, back to that, one of the last things around that we talked about, the ITC, that I had no idea that was the game. I mean, again, when they drop I don't know if any of you guys have been in like legal stuff, but like, it's like you're like, what is that? You know what I mean? And so like, I think that was a big awakening, because you realize what $1 billion companies like that do and what game they're trying to play. And then you realize how patents work. And then you realize, oh, this is how Altria, Philip Morris, Pfizer. Oh, you realize they play a whole different regulatory patent game. And then you get advisors from that world, and then you're like, oh, they're playing on a. We're not. Some people aren't even playing. They don't even know that that's a game being played.
The difference between high school ball and pro ball.
Yeah. It's not any different when you came up through the world. It's like, hey, I have a Connect, or this is happening. You realize they're playing a different game, right? Or you learn that, hey, I'm going to get a 4-lighter, and then I'm going to get to a 100-lighter. It's a very different game. I'm going to run a Jenny scene, or I'm going to do some depths, or I'm going to run a full sun, right? Different game. I'm going to go and get a license in California and make a lot of money. Different game. And then they all got humbled, right? A lot of people get humbled. And then you realize, the corporate world comes into space, and they want to use different investment vehicles to help do this and fuel it, right? Use debt vehicles, and they don't realize the second and third order consequences in that world. And then you see great legacy operators that have maybe fallen off, or they went too fast. They got over their skis. They didn't know the game they were playing, right? And so I think it's a great lesson in life in general, right? Because it sparks the point about presence and curiosity, who's around you, right? And but yeah, know the game that you're playing, right? Know that if you're in a boardroom with a bunch of suits, it's probably a different game than you're playing them like sitting around a room where that guy's making a point, that guy's making a point, and you know how that goes, right? So
yeah,
so it's just different. Or someone's selling you something, a dream, and then they underdeliver, right? These are all the things that you got to realize, or they do a bait and switch. So I'm not saying people are bad. I'm just saying just be aware of what aligns with your values. Feel that inside of you, and make sure you got good people around you. I've been very fortunate, and that's why we're excited about Active. We got great people, man, and We got a lot of things on the horizon. We have a lot of excitement. We have just, I mean, not only diversifications for stability, but also like just ability to kick ass for clients and people. And I think that's the part that's got us really jazzed.
Yeah.
There's nothing more than that getting back on the ground and meeting people, right? Like,
well, and you know the product you have. And when you have something special, in my opinion, you're excited to enter it into this space and let it perform. Like, let's let these things run now. Let's put them with the right people, the right companies that can help carry this product and showcase it the way that you are right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that is look, you're the star of the show. We're the backup dancer. We're the one like back there trying to tune stuff, right? Make sure the mics are working. You know what I mean? Making sure that your angles are good. Your team is setting up. Like,
come on, big dog. Come on, big dog.
I'm like, that's active.
Yeah.
You are the star, right? You're the brand, right? I'm just saying in general. I'm just making an analogy, right? Like that's what we do. We're behind the scenes. We're supposed to make you shine. And that's our goal. And that's our passion. There's nothing more. Dude, one of the things I didn't even talk about, like, don't quote me on it. We'll see what happens on this Emerald Cup. But like, shit, up since we started like 4 or 5 years, I think we've almost swept all. Like there was a year I think we won like our brands that we work with run 13 to 15 like of podiums, like first, second, third, first, second, third. Yeah. You can look on our website, but like there was a year I think where we swept like rosin, just like all the categories with those brands. That just shows like people that get it, that are in that world, get it. Right. And I think we take pride in the success of our clients, you know? And I think that's what the serendipitous curiosity happened. Like it started with just like, I just trying to figure out how to have great hash in my pocket. I like hash too. You know what I mean? So like just that process. And I'm like, well, who else is doing it? Well, nobody's doing it. Oh, shit, now we're doing that. And just like a distraction after another distraction with issues and then putting us in those spaces, right? That's realizing that we are in another game. Mm-hmm. And then, this game is different players. And then this game is different players. And that recognition has helped us. And I try to take a step back and try to remember that journey. And again, back to that point, it's about who you're on the journey with.
Yeah. And I mean, through our whole convo, I always come up with like a conclusion in my mind. And for you, it's passion. This whole business is built on passion, and I can feel your passion for this even now, this many years later. Mm-hmm. And that's what we need more in the space of people that have passion, and that drives everything else. I'm sure you've had to learn a lot of hard lessons along the way that now who you are is way different than where this thing started.
Yeah.
That's only built on passion. I mean, Alex, active, man. I'm impressed, bro. It took a year for us to sit down just with your schedule's crazy, then our schedule's crazy. And I'm really glad we got to sit down, because if I'm a hash company out there, or let's just say extraction company, and I'm looking to enter the space without having to learn hard lessons right off the bat, you're someone that I would A, either pay for consulting, or B, go to for my hardware. A or B or both. But the first thing that comes to mind as we were speaking off camera and now on camera is like, wow, what a great resource if you do consulting, or if you're a company and you want some expertise injected into your hardware and it's not just someone selling you hardware. Like, well, good luck.
Yeah. No, we don't
you're
do that.
Someone I 100% would talk to, because the performance of the gas in your engines is top notch, which means you're testing these in so many different ways, as we can see that like you're just as much a consultant as, in my opinion, as you are someone who an expert in hardware.
I appreciate that, man.
No, this is exciting. I can't wait for some of our people behind the scenes to try a few of these. Like,
yeah, no, I got all the carts here. Like, we're gonna fill a lot of these, and then you guys do it. We gotta be like, ooh, that's interesting. Ooh, that's interesting, right? And that'll be fun. And look, man, it's passion and grit, right? At the end of the day, don't forget, you got to get shit done, right? And yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. Obviously, it took a lot of time, but it's everyone out there. just smoke some hash, you know?
Yeah, I mean, dude, put some of this Skittles mimosa, holy shit, in one of these hardwares. But we do off the mic, and that's before and after the pod. We're definitely going to get into some chatting on and off the mic. And anyone interested, and you're trying to get into this space, or knows how hard hardware is, and knows most hardware companies are not trial and error this much with this high quality, with actual product that people would be proud to have in their carts. Active, man. Honestly, first smoke of the day pleasure.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Alex from Active, first smoke of the day. See you next week.
Peace.
Hey, stop. Before you leave, roll up another one. We got more episodes just like this. Click right here.